So we discussed Lashon Tov, how to speak well of people, and why speaking good is such an important mitzvah, and how speech creates worlds. So we spent, 2-3 classes on that? Something like that. We're now going to look at the opposite, which is called Lashon Hara. Lashon Hara, and we're going to see why Lashon Hara is seen so bad. You should have a flavor for this, because we said Lashon Tov, we said already, creates worlds and builds worlds. We said that God used it to create the entire universe. Speech was what was used, why the word Vayomer was used so many times to create the world. 10 times the word Vayomer, or a speech, is used to create the world. Therefore, destructive speech, which is the real definition of Lashon Hara, destructive speech is going to be that which destroys the world in a number of ways. Let's begin with a Yerushalmi on page 111. And it says that there's 4 things that are really bad that a person can do in this world, which affects them in this world and their neshama in the next world. Arba devarim she'nifra min ha'adam ba'olam hazeh va'keren k'eved la'olam haba. 4 things that I consider in Judaism to be like real big no-nos. They're going to affect a person in Olam Hazeh. They'll affect your quality of life in this world, but they'll also affect your quality of life in the next world. That means they are physically affecting you here and spiritually, but the spiritual consequences will be in the next world. What are they? Avodah Zarah, idol worship. Gilui Arayah, forbidden sexual relationships. Shvichat Damim, murder. And then it says, the Lashon Hara, Kinei Kulan. Lashon Hara, destructive speech, is equal to all of them. Now, there's a couple of ways to understand what that means, equal to all of them. One interpretation is that against each and every one of these 3, Lashon Hara is equally bad to each one of them individually. But another interpretation is that if you were to stack up these 3 against Lashon Hara, against destructive speech, Lashon Hara is going to be equal to all 3 when they are mitzdaref, when they are packed together. How can it be? How can it be that you saying something not so nice about someone else, even actually if it's true, we're going to see the Lashon Hara is actually, if it's true, how can it be that that is as severe as killing someone, as worshipping idols, as forbidden relationships? How can that be? So let us begin, actually, fascinating enough, with a topic that is appearing in this week's parasha. And this is about Miriam. Miriam is one of the places from the Torah that we learn about an infliction. Well, we learned about it before, we learned about it in Vayikra, but this is one of the places we begin to see that physical speech can have speech can have physical repercussions on a person. And that is called Sara'at. Sara'at is what it's called. And I don't want to call it leprosy because it isn't leprosy. Leprosy is a skin condition, but it had a leprosy-like quality to it that it would affect the skin. It's called Sara'at. Person that had it's called a Mitzorah, which happens to be what we're discussing in these weeks in the parashat. So let's have a look what's going on over here. What did Miriam do? So Miriam spoke badly about Moshe Rabbeinu. And by the way, her intentions weren't even bad. And what she said happened to have been true. Yet, she was greatly punished for what she did. Let's see what she did, because it is actually a mitzvah to remember this act every single day. There's something about this particular act. The rabbis made it one of the 6 things that a person has to remember every single day. What Miriam did to Moshe Rabbeinu. Her baby brother. V'taber Miriam v'Aaron v'Moshe. Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moshe. Al odot ha'isha kushit. Because he married a woman who was a kushit. Asher lakach. That he married. V'yomer harak ach b'Moshe diber Hashem. I don't understand. Is it only that God spoke to Moses? Halak gambanu diber v'yishma Hashem. God spoke to us as well. What is going on over here? She says, I don't understand. Something happened between Moshe Rabbeinu and his wife. Something occurred. And then she says, I don't understand. Did Hashem only speak to Moshe? Hashem speak to us as well. What is happening over here? So the commentators tell us something very, very interesting. And that is that Moshe Rabbeinu is different to every other prophet that ever lived. Every other prophet was given fair warning or could prepare themselves for the level of prophecy that they reached. Moshe Rabbeinu had no such warning. He could be sitting there at 1 minute, he didn't have to prepare himself, Hashem spoke to him, panim el panim, face to face, and boop, he's in this world of prophecy. Now, in order to do that, you have to be spiritually pure. You have to be pure. It's very difficult to be physically pure all the time when you're married, when you're involved in intimate relations. Therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu, much later in the life, after he had kids, separated from his wife. And he had to do that. He was an old man at that point, but separated from his wife. Miriam turns around and says, I don't understand. He has to do that to his wife, the Cushite? This great and spiritual woman? Is that what he has to do? Hashem speak to us as well. That's not good. The Torah carries on. Vayomer Shimon Nadavrei Miyen Neviim Hashem b'marei alav. God heard and said, now hear my words. If there should be prophets among you, I have placed them in visions. In other words, generally speaking, all prophets have one status. And that is Hashem comes to them in visions and speaks to them through dreams, through certain designs, metaphors that will come into the person's head. Okay? And they weren't always so clear. You weren't always so clear exactly what was coming through. That was the spiritual level of a prophet. Actually, the Rambam said there were schools of prophecy. People used to go to special schools and they will learn how to become great prophets. Just like a person can grow in intelligence, they can grow in terms of their level of nevuah as well. He says, you know what? That's a regular prophet, says Hashem. All of you are regular prophets. It's great. But that's regular. Loi ken avdi Moshe. But this is not true about my servant Moshe. The whole beiti nemanhu. He is trusted in all of my house. Which means Moshe Rabbeinu had free reign in the spiritual world, whatever that means. Peh el peh adaber bo. I speak to him mouth to mouth. Umare belo bechidot utzumunat Hashem yabid. And when I speak to him, I'm not speaking through riddles. I speak to him, says Rashi, through aspaklaria, clearly. They say another prophet would it's like a shaded piece of glass they would have to look through in order to see. It wasn't clear exactly what they were seeing in order to define it. The greater the prophet, the greater clarity they had, but it wasn't simple. That's not true. Moshe Rabbeinu's prophecy, says the Rambam, one of the principles of our faith is that it is clear, like looking through clear glass. Aspaklaria. Why did you not be careful when you spoke about Moshe Rabbeinu? Moshe Rabbeinu did something which I commanded him to do, and yet you spoke about him. Now, what they said was true, actually. And we're going to see from here that Lashon Hara, in order to be Lashon Hara, has to be true. If what you say about another person is not true, it's not Lashon Hara. It's something else called Motzi Shemra. Taking out a person's bad name, giving a person a bad name. That's not what we're discussing over here. Lashon Hara, the real definition of real Lashon Hara is, it's true, but it's destructive, and there is no constructive purpose for you to say it. I'd write those words down if I were you. Real Lashon Hara, the expression Lashon Hara, is a general expression we use for gossip and other things, but it's actually not true. It's referring to one thing that is true information, that is destructive. What you say about this person is going to somehow destroy them. How? We have to see. Whether physically, or emotionally, or financially, or psychologically, or their friends will like them, whatever it is going to somehow impact them negatively. And by doing so, you have destroyed them by saying these words, even though they're true, and there is no constructive reason for you to have said them. There's nothing constructive. There's no benefit. You're not helping anyone by saying them. If there were a possibility, we're going to see that you are helping that person by speaking bad against them to other people, such as somebody wants to go into business with them, or someone wants to start dating them or get married to them, then already you may be obligated to say something about them. But we'll see there's a number of conditions you have to qualify for in order to say this information. Here, there was nothing. There's nothing constructive. It's only destructive because people start looking badly at Moshe Rabbeinu, how they accept the Lashon Hara. People look bad upon the greatest Jewish prophet, which makes them look bad upon all the Torah, because Moshe Rabbeinu's prophecy is the Torah. So this was not good. What happened to Miriam? Vayecha Hashem bam vayelach. Hashem got very upset. Vanan sam yala oel, and the cloud left the tent. V'nei Miriam mitzorat kashelik. She became a mitzora. She was covered with this white disease. This was a physical manifestation of a spiritual problem. We don't have this nowadays, of course. But in biblical times, people were at such a high level that when they did something, it impacted. We have a kind of idea. We know that how a person feels emotionally, psychologically, now we know this, can impact their body. Okay, so we have an inkling of this idea that a person's body sometimes reacts, right? I mean, rashes, hives, or heart disease because of what's happening to them.
You can get a migraine.
Migraine, you name it, right? By the way, for a long time this wasn't accepted. You have mind and body, and they're two different things. Never the twain shall meet. But no. Your body reacts. You can actually see physical maladies on your body for what's happening to you emotionally through stress and other things. In our generation, actually, that's very well understood. That's a very small understanding of what was happening over here. Let me finish this off, come to you, Rebecca. Of what was happening over here. Over here, what was happening was that it literally came up as a skin disease. It was seen, it was visible. You knew how you were doing spiritually by seeing this. And it wasn't so easy to figure it out. You needed the Kohanim, would have to come with the priest, that was their job to come along, measure and see whether it was some actual skin disease, which is irrelevant, or actually this was a physical manifestation of a spiritual problem that you were facing. Okay? Yeah. Oh, so we had Rebecca first, and I'll come to you, Laura. Yeah.
I think that I read somewhere that like if you didn't go to the Kohanim and try to figure out what the problem was, that it would like go to your house and like.
The Torah says, right, it actually moved to your articles and to your house as well. Right. Right, absolutely, which leprosy doesn't do. Yes, Lara. It didn't just stop with the with the body. Actually, it probably started with the house, then went to items, and actually ended up on the body. There were various gradations that it came to.
What?
Tzara.
Did Tzara affected your house?
Yes, you would actually see blotches on your wall, even, they say. Yeah.
I don't understand so much. Why was Miriam upset? Was she upset because Moshe didn't feel that he could experience a prophecy amongst them?
No. She was upset because she felt bad for his wife, who was a great tzedekah, a very great woman, and she felt bad that she was being left alone. But Miriam was informed by Hashem that it's different from Moshe Rabbeinu. This does not apply to anyone else. You get married, you stay married. Moshe Rabbeinu, however, had to physically separate from his wife because he had to be in a constant state of preparation to talk to Hashem, and therefore intimacy was prevented from him at that much later point of his life. Okay, for that small part of his life he couldn't, and she felt bad, and then she said something. She didn't just keep it in her mind, she didn't just think Lashon Hara, which may not be a problem, but she spoke it out. She spoke it out, and that became the problem. Okay? Now what's going to happen is, she's going to get leprosy, which we're going to see, and she's going to be quarantined. Now you would have thought leprosy means she got sarat. People thought, well, you got a skin disease, it's catchy, you have to separate yourselves. That's not the reason. They were put outside of the camp to sit by themselves. Why is that? Why would that be the fix-up for Lashon Hara? Why is that connected to it? Because if you spoke Lashon Hara, you brought separation among people. When you speak bad about someone, if I haven't been to speak bad about Kayla, people are not going to like her, not going to talk to her. She's going to be alone. Right? I'm going to say, oh, Kayla, she's so mean. She's not, obviously, which I'm using now. But Kayla's so mean that don't, whatever. People are not, so she's going to be by herself. Oh, you made Kayla sit by herself through your speech? Then the tikkun, the fix-up is that you're going to sit by yourself because of your speech. and they would parade them through and say, "Oh, Tzarat, Tzarat, stay away, stay away," and the person would have to sit by themselves outside the camp for 7 days.
Wow.
Until the Tzarat cleared up. And then they were allowed to go in. What happened to Miriam is they were actually meant to travel. The entire Jewish people went to travel at this time. But they were prevented because she wasn't able to travel. She was outside the camp. So they had to wait 7 days for her Tzarat to clear up before they could even move. So Hashem kept the entire Jewish people still so that she could have this cleanup. That's what it says. Vanan sami ala oil. Okay, she turned into a Tzarat. V'yifen Aaron la Miriam. Her name is Tzarat. V'tisager Miriam echos machaneh. She was kept outside the camp. Shiva Yemen for 7 days. Va'am lo nasa ada asaf Miriam. And the people couldn't journey. They waited for her. A great testimony. They didn't just leave her behind. They waited for her. You know what? We're meant to keep traveling towards Israel. We're going to wait because Miriam is over there. Okay. So this connect, we haven't seen the connection so far. Just in the verse that we read, we haven't seen the connection. We just see that Miriam said something about Moshe Rabbeinu, which was true. Hashem was not happy about it and says it's different for you. And he actually created a physical example for her. He quickly appeared to Miriam, and she quickly had to start finding water. Now, quickly get me water. I have to purify myself before I speak to Hashem. Right? Go to the mikveh. You know, I have to purify myself. And she wasn't able to. He's like, you see what it's like? That's what Moshe Rabbeinu's life will be like all the time. Because I just appeared to him like that. It doesn't take time to build up, to reach that level. Boom, it begins and that's it. If you look later on, however, you see the connection. It says in Devarim, Chaf Daled, Chet Tet, verse 8 to 9, chapter 24 of Deuteronomy, Hishamer b'neged tzara l'shmo mod. Be very, very careful regarding this plague of tzara'at. That's what it's called. Tzara'at. It appears many times in the Torah. Learn that word. Zachor, there is a mitzvah to remember et asher asa Hashem Elokecha, that which Hashem did to Miriam. Miriam, b'derech, on the way, b'tzreitem and Mitzrayim, when they left Egypt. There is a mitzvah, actually every day, to remember this story of Miriam. Why? She made a mistake. Why? Because part of our daily avodah, our daily worship should be to remember not to speak negatively about other people. And in many prayer books, I think in all prayer books, but many people have the custom, which I do sometimes I don't, depends how late I am. But I didn't actually this morning because I was running late. But, so I'm going to say it now. At the end of the Shacharit prayer, they have a list of things you have to remember every day. A list of remembrances. And one of them is, Zachor et asher asa Miriam b'seitchem b'derech Mitzrayim. Remember what Miriam did. Why do I have to remember what she did? She made a mistake. There's lots of mistakes Jewish people have made. This is the classic example of Lashon Hara being spoken and the negative consequences of it. And by the way, make no mistake, Miriam was a very holy woman. And she went back to being a very, very holy woman right after this. And she probably was the entire time. Let's not forget that when Miriam died, the Jewish people didn't have water anymore. It was in her merit that they had water in the desert. I mean, this is one of the leading prophetesses of Jewish history. Yet even she made a mistake. She spoke Lashon about Moshe Rabbeinu, and she was punished for it. And by the way, she wasn't being malicious. She wanted to, bring some sympathy on Moshe Rabbeinu's wife, whose name was Tzipporah. Very good. Tzipporah. Says Rashi, what's this remember? Zachor. So we're putting together different things. Focus. We have number 1, Miriam Moshe Rabbeinu's discussion. 2, she gets Tzarat. 3 being said, you've got to remember that whole episode on a daily basis. Zachor, says Rashi, what does that mean, Zachor? If you wish to be sure that you do not suffer from Tzarat, al tesaper Lashon Hara, don't speak Lashon Hara. Remember, why should I remember? Remember doesn't mean just remember, it means to speak it out. Why? So that you don't end up getting Tzarat like Miriam. Zachor Sila Miriam, remember what happened to Miriam? Shedibra Ba'acheh, who spoke about her brother. The Lakta b'Negaim, and she received Negaim, she received Nega, which is this physical blemish. Okay? So we see that a major part of the Torah, first of all, we have a whole story just on Miriam, which is a mitzvah to remember, right, and to discuss. And we see that this physical thing came from Lashon Hara. Now, it actually came from a number of other things as well, to be fair. But this is one of the main ones, and this is the one that is most closely connected to the Torah. Okay? It was most closely connected to this event. Now let's look at the Rambam. The Rambam in the laws of Tuma Tzarat, the laws of Tzarat, which, again, we don't have Tzarat nowadays, so when we learn it, we just learn the ideas about it, which is as good as, kind of being there. And he says, you know what? Think about this episode that Rashi spoke about. Look inside. We're on page 113. I've come a long way, people. Woo. And he says the following. Val inyan zeh hu masir b'Torah. About this, we get a warning in the Torah. Hayishamer b'nega tzarat. Be very careful with this tzarat, this physical rash. Zachor, remember, et asa Hashem alekech l'Miriam, what Hashem did to Miriam, b'derech, on the way. That's the piece we just read. He's like, 1 second. Let's think about this for a minute. Let's think about what happened. Harihu Omer, his baranu ma'ira Miriam, Hanavia. Think about what happened to Miriam, the great prophetess, one of the great prophetess of Jewish history. Shedibra ba'acheu, spoke about her brother. Shaita gedola men. Now, first of all, she was older than him. She's talking about her baby brother. Gedola menu b'shanim. Right? Gidlaso al barachea, and she raised him. Why are we being told this? Baby brothers? How do you feel towards your baby brother? You want to have a baby brother? Right? You love your little baby brother? Older brothers? Not so good. They're annoying and, torture you the whole time. But baby brothers, they're so cute, And they sit in your lap and you play with them. This is Miriam's baby brother. She brought him up. Let's not forget, by the way, that she saved his life. How did she save his life? How did she save his life? She put him in the basket when Paro was killing all the firstborn boys. Put him in the water, she kept her eye on him, made sure he was safe. Actually, without her, he wouldn't have been born. Her parents weren't willing to have more children because they were scared that any children they would have would be killed by Paro. And she said, no. He's just killing boys. It could be you have a girl. It's wrong what you're doing. And she talked them into having more children. And they did. And it came out a boy. And then she saved the boy. It was her baby brother. And she loved him. It wasn't an enemy. She wasn't speaking about someone she hated. It's a cute little baby brother. At this point, they were much older. But someone she loved. Right? And she and she put herself in danger. And she put herself in physical danger by saving him from the water. Right? She loved her brother. She put her life on the line for him. And by the way, she didn't even speak anything. She didn't shame him. Right? She didn't try to embarrass him. She just even speak that negative about him. Just compare him to other prophets. She says other prophets don't. He does. It wasn't like speaking bad about he's a terrible person, stay away from him. She didn't say that. She said other prophets don't. Why does he? She just made this comparison. And you know what? He didn't even mind. He didn't turn around and say, oh, what is it about me? It's his older sister. He respected her. She saved his life. She took care of him. He didn't like pity. He didn't even mind. Al kol davar me'elu. How do we know that he didn't mind? Because it says afterwards, V'ha'ish Moshe anav ma'od. Moshe Rabbeinu was extremely humble. He wasn't full of himself. Oh, don't talk about me like that. How dare you? He was very humble. He just let it wash over him. He didn't mind at all. So she loved him. She saved his life for him. She didn't say anything particularly bad about him. And he didn't even mind what she said. And yet, she still was punished for this. For Afal Piken, even so, follow inside, Miyad Nan Shabbat Sarat, she was immediately punished with Sarat. Kal V'chomer, which is a Talmudic way of saying how much more so, yeah. L'bnei Adam harashayim, about terrible people, vatipshim, and fools. Rambam's pretty, right? Shemarbam gedulos v'niflot, who speak all types of pompous and full of themselves words about other people. Lefikach, therefore, ra'oi lemi sherotze lechaven orchatav litrachek miyishvasen. How important is that a person who wants to improve themselves, right, they want to fix their orchasa, they want to improve themselves, to separate themselves as much as possible from this. And stay away from people and from speaking with them. He's like, now that's unusual. Why does he say that? Why does the Rambam say, and if you want to stay away from Lashon Hara, stay away from such people who say bad things? What could the Rambam have said? Don't say bad things. He doesn't say that. And we're going to learn from here something pretty fascinating. And that is, I have a pen, that when it comes to Lashon Hara, there are 3 people involved in it. Phones away, please. There are 3 people involved in Lashon Hara. One is the speaker. One speaker, the Lashon Hara. In this case, it was Miriam. 2, there is the listener. And 3, there is the person being spoken about. One being spoken about. Now, we're going to see in the Rambam a little bit later, but I think you have a hint to it over here. Because he's like, Lashon Hara is terrible. Stay away from the one speaking it. He should say, don't speak it. And elsewhere, he's going to say, don't speak it. But over here, he's like, stay away from this person. Of these 3, which would you consider to be the worst? Lior, Levi? The speaker, the listener, or the one being spoken about? Oh, why'd you say that?
Because it's probably the right answer.
It is the right answer, but you gotta tell me why.
Probably because the listener should probably stop them, and although they're being influenced, and they could do like the speaker is saying like one thing, right? But if the listener is influenced by that, he could say like a million things throughout his life, and then that could be worse.
Correct. Larry, you want to add to that?
No.
You see, you would have thought the speaker's bad. We're going to speak about Lashon Hara, speaking bad about the people. Terrible, terrible, terrible. Ram's like, that is terrible. But you know what's worse than the speaker? The listener. Why would this be worse, right? It's a little unusual. Why would this be worse?
You're a bystander. It's like you're allowing it to happen. It's like you're doing it yourself.
Right, you're allowing it to happen because how does negative speech, destructive speech is really the definition we should use. They refer to it as negative in the books, but it's really destructive speech. You're destroying this other person's life somehow in a small or big way. The speaker's going to do it. But if the listener is not mekabel, does not accept it, then the bad speech won't go anywhere. It gets stopped. You hear? You hear? Right? The listener over here, you understand? Because I got a few confused faces. Are you following? The listener is accepting, is makabel what the speaker is saying. If the listener would say, hey, don't talk like that, that's not true. Or they'll be like, I don't believe it. Or, as we'll see later on, if they're stuck, they put their fingers in their ears, or whatever it is. Whatever it is, then the speaker has no one to speak to, and the Lashon Hara doesn't travel. So the speaker is bad. But the one who listens, and more importantly, accepts what is being said, that person, as the Rambam, is worse. Maybe that's what the Rambam is insinuating over here. That if I say something bad to Kayla about Lior, Kayla could turn around to me. I'm the speaker in the scenario. Kayla is the makabel. She's the listener. The shomea, the listener. The makabel. She's being makabelit. Right? And then she's going to think bad about Lior, or she's going to spread it to someone else, right? To Rachel or Laura or someone else about Lior. And then eventually Lior is not loved anymore. Not good. Not good. But she has a choice. She, as the listener, has a choice. I already made my decision. I don't like her and I want to talk bad about her. So the rabbi's going to talk to me and say, like, that's bad. But he's actually saying, you know what's worse? If Kayla accepts my words, and then the whole ripple effect of Lashon Hara, like in a pool, when you throw the rock in, the ripples flow to the other side. And then a wave goes through it, and then it destroys Lior's reputation, which we don't want to do, because we love Lior, right? She's a lovely young lady. But it all begins with her. Weird, right? You would have thought, oh, the speaker, the listener, what do? They just happened to be standing there. They did a lot. First of all, they didn't say anything back to them. And two, they believed it. And they're willing to act upon it. Yeah.
So what if they listen and they don't want to say anything to be rude or to embarrass them in front of others, but then they just don't spread it?
And they don't believe
So the thing is, yeah, you can't believe what's being said. You have to find. What we spoke about earlier on, Havidam Kavschut. I say to you, Lior, right? She never opens the elevator. She's always let the elevator close, and she's always cutting in line. She doesn't do either of those things. I'll be very, very clear with you, right? Okay. So now I'm like saying this in your mind, right? You'd be like, okay, they said it already, right? It got out. It entered into your ear. But in your mind, you can think to yourself, it's not true. I just don't believe it. She's not like that. The alternative would be, if possible, you could turn around to the person and be like, I don't think that's true. Right? I don't think that's true. I've actually seen her do very nice things. She lets people in front of her in line. She's holding the elevator open. She's always being kind. She's always on time for class. Whatever it is, you can try to defend that. Now, you can't overdo it. We're going to see there's an interesting halacha. There's many halachas when it comes to this. Many, many, many. There's an interesting halacha that you shouldn't overly praise someone to somebody else that you know doesn't like them. Let's say I know you don't like Leo. Right? I should say, oh, Leo, she's so nice. She's so sweet. What's going to happen? Right? No, she's going to start talking. Oh, you like her? Let me tell you all about her. Let me tell you what she's really all about. So you shouldn't overly praise someone to someone who you know does not like that person. Now, people misunderstand this halacha and think that means you shouldn't praise people to other people. That's not true. You should praise people to other people. You should praise them a lot. Leo's so nice, Shane's such a nice girl, always listens so well, never on a phone in class, right? She's always doing so well, and doing so on exams. You always say nice things, that's okay. We're only talking about if you know that Shane had an argument with someone, right? And then you start to suddenly verbally like, oh, she's a nice person. You know what's going to happen. You're going to hear a whole bunch of trash talk about some other stuff that's completely unrelated and probably isn't true anyway.
What if you know it's true, but you don't spread it?
It is, that's exactly what we're saying. That you have just defined, we're going to see there's 5 things we're going to define.
Okay.
The one we're talking about right now is where it is true, and you don't accept it and don't spread it.
Okay.
You've done a great mitzvah.
But you're
You've done-
accepting it
But you're accepting it because you know it's true.
If, again, we're defining it this way. Lashon Hara is that you are spreading it, and now it's going to somehow lead to some negative impact on the other person.
Okay, so even if you know that it's true and in that way you believe
It is true.
Right, okay, fine. So then
It is. What Miriam said happened to be true.
Okay, but as long as you don't do anything
You
with
can't
it,
spread
then it's
it.
fine.
You can't spread it because people are going to think bad about this person. Lashon Hara is true information. Someone got, I don't know, 5% in their test, which will not happen in this class yet. Okay? So 5% in the class. And I was like, she got 5%. She's so stupid. Oh my God, she's so, stay away from me. She's so stupid. Don't hang out with stupid people. Did she get 5% of the test? Yes. Is it true? Yes. But I can't spread that information. I have to see it. Can I spread that information? No. Is she stupid? Yes. She is. You got 5%. You're gonna be really stupid. You got 5% right? How's your test? You gotta literally not turn up. My 5-year-old is gonna get more than 5%. It's true, but that's Lashon Hara. Motzi Shemra is she got 5% when actually got 90.
Oh,
That's
lying
false.
about
That's
it.
lying.
Okay.
That's something else. That's also Lashon Hara. It's another form of Lashon Hara. It's going to be 5 forms of Lashon Hara we're going to learn together.
Is one worse than the other, or is it all equal?
Lashon Hara is considered one of the worst.
Wow.
Interestingly enough. We'll see why.
Okay.
Lashon, and actually when we talk about bad gossip, we use Lashon Hara to describe all of it. It's the go-to term for all negative speech. It's the go-to term, but actually it's referring to only one category of the 5, and that is true information you'll spread that's going to eventually negatively impact this person by you spreading it. It's nothing constructive. Not like saying she got 5%. You know what? Let's help her. Let's get her extra tuition. Let's tell her to drop out of school, right? I'm saying whatever it's going to be. Let's do something positive about it, right? We're going to see there's constructive ways you can say information. There's various things you've got to figure out exactly. Is it first-hand knowledge? Are you not enjoying saying it? I mean, there's lots of... And we're discussing gossip over here. That's what they call it. But gossip has no real It doesn't work gossip, because gossip can just true, not true. We have very specific categories of what defines Lashon Hara. It ain't so simple. We're going to see it's Rechilot, Motzi Shemra, Avak Lashon Hara. There's various categories we're going to learn together. Gossip is, but there's a reason it's called juicy. You know the expression juicy gossip?
Mm-hmm.
Why is it called juicy gossip? They don't call it bad gossip, they call it juicy gossip. Because it's juicy. Unlike your grapefruit this morning, which is not juicy,
Oh, poor
which we
Sean.
all heard about. But a juicy grapefruit, right? There's something called juicy Lashon Hara. It's juicy. We enjoy it. We enjoy it. It's a natural inclination that we want to do this. We are told it is the worst thing. You are killing someone by doing something like this. And we'll see that every bad event that has happened to the Jewish people over thousands of years, actually even the non-Jewish people, to be honest with you, every war, every destructive family environment, every community breaking up, whatever it is, always involved Lashon Hara. Always. Lara.
Just a question. So Moses was humble, and he wasn't too fussy about the fact that his sister talked about.
Yeah, and Moshe Rabbeinu was so humble that when Miriam said these words, Lo hikpid, Rambam said he didn't even mind.
So that's really cool. That just shows how humble he is. My question is, if you're a person, so I think, I don't know who said it to me once, that you're not supposed to correct anybody. Like your job in this world is not to teach anybody, and you can't do revenge.
Whoa.
Let's say,
You can teach people. You can't take revenge. You can teach people.
But what if, so what if
You can't give
you
people
know-
rebuke. You can't give people rebuke.
So what if a person, what if you knowingly know somebody's doing, gossiping about you? What do you do about it? Do you go about your day, you ignore it? What do you do?
Okay, Moshe Rabbeinu was able to do it. Great question. The Rambam, we mentioned this Rambam before, says in Hilchot Deh, the laws of conduct, that is a mitzvah to approach that person and say, why do you say those things about me? Privately. Don't do that. It's true, not true. You know, I got 5% in Rabbi Hedjov's test. You know what? I obviously didn't study at all ever, but I have room for improvement, 95% to be exact. Don't do that again. It's a mitzvah to go up to them and say to them, don't do that to me. You should go up to them, not in anger, and go up to them. If they carry on, they carry on. Stay away. The Rabbi said to stay away. But the Rabbi is saying stay away from these people. He's saying these are bad people.
But what if it's a group that's doing it? It's not an individual.
Then you go up to the people and tell them.
But we're not supposed to rebuke them in public.
So go up to them individually. I don't know. Find some way to get the information over. By the way, the Rambam speaking about, we all speak Lashon Hara, by the way, I'm just warning you. Right? We all do all the time. And by you learning this, you're still going to do it. But at least as the Chafetz Chaim, who speaks a lot about this, you're aware of it. You are aware that it's a bad thing. I wanted to share one more biblical example, and we'll finish with this. And that is, we're speaking about speaking Lashon Hara against people. Here's the mind-blowing part of this. Lashon Hara doesn't just mean against people. It could be against a community, a town. It could be against a country. And we're going to see another story in the Torah where 10 people were sent to spy the land of Israel. Sorry, 12 people, and 10 came back with a negative report about the land of Israel. The Jewish people accepted it, and actually we're going to see this was the first ever Tisha B'Av, because they accepted the Lashon Hara of these 10 spies. You know the story of the 10 spies that Moshe Rabbeinu sent to Israel? It was a big, fat failure. Let's have a look. This is in Bamidbar, Yud Gimel. V'hanashim ashalu imo, the 10 men who ascended with him, that's with Joshua, said, Lo nochal lalot alam ki chazaku menu. They came back from touring Israel, because they had to spy because they were going to go and conquer it, and they turned around and they said, no. Terrible. We cannot win. It's full of these big people. They spoke bad about the land. They said it's freakish, the land. The fruits are not normal. The trees are not normal. The land creates big, unusual people. Terrible place. About Eretz Yisrael, about a person. One of the worst cases of Lashon Hara in history. Asher Torah told Bnei Israel. And by the way, they toured all about 40 days. Miraculously, they were able to see all of it. Haaretz shavanu bala Torah. Eretz ochel u'shveh. It's a land that eats its inhabitants. There were many funerals that were happening when they were there. God did that as a favor, so they wouldn't get noticed. So he chose a day. There were many funerals that were happening. They sent them in. And yet they said, oh, this is bad land. It kills its people. This is not good soil. The fruit there is not good. It's freakish. And everyone's so big over there. And we were like grasshoppers. We were tiny compared to them. We were nothing. They're talking smack about the land of Israel. Terrible, terrible thing. Says Rashi, Ochel Yoshveh, a land that eats its inhabitants. B'chol makom shavanu, mitzanu kovrei meitim. Wherever we went, we saw people were being buried. But Hashem was doing them a favor. Hashem did that as a favor to them. That He chose a day where many people died of being buried. So that they won't get noticed. When everyone's getting involved in funerals, they're not going to start seeing all these new people walking through town. So Hashem did it as a favor for them. But what did they do? They saw this great favor, and they still spoke bad against the land. So the good thing that was done for them, key. The good that was done for them, what did Hashem say? I did you a favor. And you still speak badly about my land, about Eretz Yisrael? The Gemara says that great sages in Israel used to walk around the land of Israel picking up trash and dirt so people wouldn't say, ugh, Israel's dirty. Talk bad about the holy land of Eretz Yisrael. They used to teach classes where it wasn't so sunny because then people were like, oh, it's just so hot. It's always so hot and uncomfortable. Can't talk bad about Eretz Yisrael. This is the holy land Hashem gave us as a gift. It's like someone gives you a gift and you slap them in the face. What happens? What happens? If I give you a gift, right? And you slap me in the face, what am I going to do?
Never give you a gift.
I'll take away the gift. Like, you don't deserve it. What is the punishment for Lashon Hara? You get kicked out of Israel. You don't get to keep the land. And it was for this reason they weren't allowed to enter into the land in the first place. They had to spend 40 years in the desert. 40 years they had to spend in the desert because they spoke bad about Israel. They're like, oh, you don't like it? You want to cry about it? This is the reason the Jewish people were not allowed to Israel. They had to wait 40 years for that generation to die out. And their children got to go into the land of Israel. It's not just people, it's even the land. Turn over the page. The decree the Jewish people had to wander in the desert for 40 years was sealed due to the Lashon Hara they spoke with regard to the land of Israel. And that's what the Chavetz Chaim says. We're going to see a lot from the Chavetz Chaim. The Jewish people were exiled because of Lashon Hara. Lashon Hara didn't get them in, and Lashon Hara kicks you out of the land of Israel. Next class, we're going to see what's so terrible about it that it has such a devastating effect on millions and millions of people. That shall be next class.